Hi, everybody. Welcome to your weekly broadcast. Lee Honish, David Bartels, bringing you the latest trends and marketing in the wonderful world of real estate, brought to you by everhome.io. My name's Lee Honish. I am a marketer and content provider, and I am joined, as always, by the CEO and just all-around good guy, David Bartels. David, how are you today?
I'm doing very well, thank you very much. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. In fact, starting my day off by sending a friend a positive reminder of keeping their head up even when times are tough. And I think more people should do it, especially after last night's debate where everybody is more divided than I think they started the evening.
Wow. That was not a debate.
That was not a debate. And, what I was amused by was the fact that it was Chris Wallace who probably needs a Xanax at the end of the night. So shout out to Chris Wallace. I'll send a prayer up to him. With all of that said, David, tell us a little bit about everhome.io.
Well, we're a technology-driven, company that's focused on helping sellers leverage technology to sell their home, just like a realtor, by allowing them to list their house in the multiple listing service using our very cool app in less than 20 minutes and get assistance with the critical elements of negotiations and paperwork and escrow and title, that kind of thing, all for a low set fee. So it's been going really well. I'm really excited about it. There's some great announcements coming up, and we'll be talking a lot about that, I think, as we go forward.
If you'd like information, go to everhome.io, not .com.io, www.everhome.io. This is a broadcast about real estate trends, marketing, and we try to bring you the most up-to-date information, and we do have quite a bit this week. Let's cover a little bit of housekeeping. Last night was the debate. I didn't hear anything too much about the economy. It looked more like an argument session, which created more division, more or less. Did you see anything economically between the two camps that might be of interest for anybody?
No, I didn't find anything worth of interest to anybody. I think depending on who you support, people probably think their candidate won. But for me, it was wrestling in the mud. Nobody won. No, it would have been better to skip it. So I think that if they're going to do another one, the only way, and they were both interrupting, but the only way to enforce the one's right to say what they're trying to say without being interrupted is to turn off the other one's mic. So if they decide to do another debate after last night's debacle, then maybe they'll try it that way, and and a red light saying your time is going to end in 5 seconds, and then it does. Kind of like the way they play music to get a presenter off the stage at the award ceremony.
Right. That would be perfect. Yeah, just like the Academy Awards. It's perfect. I guess that's the way to look at last night. I watched it with looking for some kind of trend or loophole or something that would be useful on any level other than Chris Wallace really needs Xanax. Good for him for getting through that whole evening.
He had his hands full.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it. There was bad news yesterday, just to keep everybody up to date on trends, as 860,000 people filed. We're coming off of 860,000 new claims of first-time unemployment. Disney is now laying off 28% of its U.S.-based workforce. They claim it's mostly part-time employees. It's 28,000 employees of their 100,000 employee base. I would imagine, David, that this is going to be a continuing trend as we go into flu season, as we keep going into it, because we're going to go into the positive news in a second. This, from a trend standpoint, is interesting to me. People are working from home. They're shifting and changing. We still have unemployment claims coming in, and we're going to talk about it. Real estate is going through the roof. Like, this is a seller's market like no other. The August numbers came out and they're through the roof. And again, we'll cover it in just a minute. I can't understand this. What are people doing for a living to afford the prices of these houses?
Well, I think if you're a renter, you're not paying rent.
True.
And if you're a homeowner struggling, you're probably not paying your mortgage. I think that's how they're doing it, Lee. So,
It's a magic conclusion.
yes.
So David gave me homework last night. All of the economic indicators are showing one thing. We've shown a 12% jump to record sales prices throughout the United States. And I did a deeper dive on this, and we'll go from here, and then we'll reverse engineer it back to cover what you sent over to me. The number that I found interesting is they tried to break it down on one of the sites that I was looking at. So what you're looking at, more or less, we've got home builders who are not producing more homes. We have a lower inventory, and I've actually got a list of cities that show a percentage drop that is pretty staggering in a strange way. The inventory shortage, it's roughly 6 months between the start of a pandemic, since the pandemic in March and mid-September. 2.91 million homes have been put on the market, and it's basically, wait, where's the number? It's 39% fewer homes this year as compared to last year. And I think that that's the overwhelming indicator for the real estate market of why we have such higher prices happening. So from your perspective, will this sustain itself? Are we just moving to a rental market? Are we just all waiting until everybody owes on their house, till all the renters, come due? Again, I'm more concerned with, will this come to a head, or will we be able to negotiate around these issues? Because it is a tremendous seller's market at this moment.
Yeah, well, there's a couple of things at play here. There are a number of dynamics that we have never seen. So on one hand, you see home prices soaring. So Southern California home prices are up 12%. I'm looking at a chart right now. The median home price actually peaked before now. It had actually peaked in about May of 07 at just over $500,000. This month in July, actually, it peaked at an all-time high of about $600,000. That's really what's happening. And since the pandemic began, it has really just shot up. Now, on the other hand, you're seeing rents actually starting to go down, especially in the big cities where people have fled.
Right.
The density of urban living. People had flocked to downtown areas. They wanted more walking. They wanted more community. And now, that's where the businesses were faced. So people were, walking to go out to breakfast, and walking to go to work, and walking to go to the gym, and walking to hang out with their friends. And now that they don't have to go to work, and they're not allowed to go to the restaurants and entertainment, and the social gatherings are really a bad idea. A lot of people are moving back with their parents temporarily, and they're deciding that they kind of like that, and they want to raise their kids that way, and they're starting to buy in the suburbs. And so you're seeing a lot of price pressure on rents in the more dense places. You're seeing some upward pressure on rents in the suburban areas, and you're seeing on the sales side, you're seeing values rise dramatically, which is driven solely on limited inventory for two reasons. Number one, sellers don't want people in their house. They're afraid that they're gonna get sick from COVID. And number two is that there are a lot of sellers that had been planning to sell but can't because they've got a tenant in there they can't get out. And so they're forced to wait to be able to sell their house. And that will all start to change early next year. And as busy as we are right now, I've talked to a lot of agents say that they're busier they've been in 20 years. I think that it's going to be even busier. The next spring selling season may be the biggest selling season that we've ever seen in the history of modern real estate.
From a trend standpoint, I'm going to point this out to everybody because somebody went to the trouble of looking up these numbers. We might as well use them. As David talked about and as pointed out in almost every article, people are leaving urban areas and moving to outliers. So the top locations right now, for those of you trend wondering, Boise City, Idaho took the top of the list. Stockton and Lodi, California. With Stockton's new mayor, they've run a couple of stories on this. They've lowered the crime rate in Stockton, which used to be the murder capital of the world or some ridiculous thing like that, of California, I think. They've actually lowered crime. They've created a better infrastructure within that city, and it's made it far more appealing for people in Northern California, so it's seeing a boom. Allentown, Bethlehem, Easton, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Youngstown, Warren, Boardman, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Ohio. Yeah. Fresno, California makes the list. Yay for Fresno, the forgotten middle of California. Riverside, San Bernardino, Ontario, California, Knoxville, Tennessee, Salt Lake, Utah, Worcester, Mass. I think you have to be from Mass to pronounce that correctly. And Akron, Ohio. Now, the reason I bring that up, especially for David and I who are here in California, I'm in San Diego. I was recently in downtown where they've just gone to the trouble of putting up condos every 5.5 feet in every building they can get their hands on in downtown San Diego. And they're having a problem moving them as purchasable units. I'm not saying that they can't, but they want top dollar because it has a view of the baseball stadium, or it has a view of the water or of the Embarcadero. So they're chasing big dollars, and people are leaving San Diego to go to outliers like Fallbrook. How is it out there by you? Where are they moving away from the LA city center and going out into the valley? How far are they pushing back?
We're seeing, we're not used to influx. I mean, just for the record, let me just preface what I'm going to say by saying that in the years that I've been doing this, and I started in 2012, in the years that I've been doing this, I would say that about 70% of the sellers that I assist are leaving the state. And the ones that are staying,
Yep.
the majority of them are downsizing versus upsizing. Now, we are starting to see some millennials move up. Okay, that they're on their second house, and the older millennials are looking to move up, and we have seen an influx of out of area. So we're seeing people coming from the Valley and downtown LA and the West Side, and coming into Thousand Oaks and Ventura and Camarillo and some of those places because they want a more suburban experience, and they are no longer tethered to jobs that are near where they currently live or lived. And we're seeing some of that, but not an overwhelming amount of that, really. But we are seeing some of that. I'm still seeing more people leaving the area and becoming more and more frustrated with the governance of California, and especially the reports that they're going to raise taxes to up from 13 to 16 something percent now.
I completely agree. Javier Vivas, Director of Economic Research for Realtor.com, had this to say: sellers are more reluctant to list their home given the uncertainty of the economy and the pandemic. I'd probably even toss in election at this point. From your standpoint, based on your history with your client list, I know we talk about it probably ad nauseum to most about the importance of keeping up on your list. How hunkered down are people from your perspective?
Well, I think, I think it really depends on a lot of things, but for the most part, I think people are over COVID. I think they really want to be over it, but on the other hand, they want to be safe. I know, like for me, my dearest friend has stage 4 cancer, and I try to make regular visits to see him. And for me, I think about him whenever I see a crowd of people and whether or not I want to venture into that crowd or not. And
Right.
generally speaking, I put on a mask and sidestep the crowd. Only because it's one thing for me to act carelessly and get sick, and it's another thing for me to act carelessly and kill somebody else. And so, and I think that if everybody had that perspective, we'd probably move this thing, along more. Having said that, I've never seen more buyer demand in my experience. I mean,
Yep.
I think it's incredible the pressure that there are on buyers to compete to win properties. Properties that I never thought would sell for the price that they were listed at are selling for the price that they were listed at, sometimes more. And whether or not that's going to end, sometime soon or not, I don't know, because at the end of the day, you still have an affordability problem. I think that though, what you're gonna, I think in the bigger markets, which are sellers that are driven by being employed by these high-paying technology firms and are realizing they can do their job from Midwest in the United States, from Boise, Idaho, wherever, whichever place in Idaho you said was number one, wherever they're going. What we're also seeing though is that the tech companies are going to encourage this because they're going to be adjusting their compensation down if they leave the area. So if they're going to leave the area and not be part of the office, they're going to
Yep.
lower their compensation 17%, 20%, 25%, based on cost of living indexes for those markets that they have relative to where they are. But the reality is those employees are saying, great, bring it on, and they're moving out. And so I think that's going to encourage more of an exodus, and that will be good for home buyers. It'll be good for real estate agents too, as more and more houses go on the market. But at some point, it may be a year or 18 months, but at some point we will return to a more balanced market. There's a lot of new inventory. There'll be a lot of people are done with being landlords after this experience. You're going to see a lot of inventory coming on the market in the spring, a lot.
Finally, to back up what you were saying from Javier Vivas, Director of Economic Research at Realtor.com, buyers, on the other hand, are especially hungry. First-timers remain largely unfazed by the challenges and are motivated by low mortgage rates and fear of missing out on the right home. The majority of sellers are also buyers, so even as new listings hit the market, another buyer is also added. It is what it is, David. It is what it is. So let's talk about it from a trend perspective. Let's talk about two different perspectives to kind of cap off this week. Number one, if I'm a buyer's agent, it's not going to be hard to find people that are interested in purchasing. It would make sense to me to start looking at outlier areas that meet a more affordable criteria. I even know this for myself, even that would include public transportation or something of that nature. I know for me, because of the pandemic, the use of a car or even going to see my daughter, since she now officially lives in a bubble, thanks to my ex-wife, and I've seen her all of once in the past, it seems like a year. It probably hasn't been that long. But everybody's sort of hunkered down, right? The need to travel, the reason to commute has been cut down. So I'm removing the cost of extensive travel or extensive drive time. It would seem logical to me to follow forms of public transportation or trains or things of that nature and start looking for things that are affordable along those lines and be aware of them, because I don't think it's hard to find a buyer right now. And if that's the case, then it's just a matter of finding something that meets their appropriate affordability, right? Get them pre-qualified as quick as you can, know what the actual number is, and give them a set of options. that also includes, look, you can cut down your costs by being a part of the train or the trolley or the bus line or whatever it is, to sort of fit in with what could possibly be the new normal, right? Everybody just sort of tightening their belts and settling into, yeah, this is a good reason for us to start saving and thinking more long term and cutting down our overhead. We've all learned a valuable lesson because it is the new normal and it's going to stay this way for quite some time. It would seem to me that that's a logical solution for buyers agents or even people new to real estate, which I'm sure is still happening. It's a job that's still out there. I would focus on that. I would become a specialist of relocate. I want to be out of the city. I don't need to be next to my office. Okay, here's a list of options for you if you're staying in the state. If you're moving out of state, here are your options. That just seems to be a logical trend for real estate agents right now.
I think that you're right. Listen, this is not, none of this is really that complicated. And all people, I think the big challenge the real estate industry has is that they want to do things the way it's always been done, or the way they've been taught, or the way they think it should be done, as opposed to really paying attention to what the consumer is looking for and adopting their business based on demands of the consumer. And I think that's really important. I mean, at Everhome, that's really what our focus is it's not about doing business the way we think it should be done. It's about doing business the way buyers and sellers think it ought to be done and building a business around that. And we find it's significantly easier to be successful when you're simply offering services that people want to buy. Does that make sense?
It makes complete sense, which takes us to our last question. All right, I'm removing your client list from you from the next question. You were going, based on what you're seeing happening in the market, got a brand new agent that comes in, you can use your Everhome tools if you'd like. I'm a brand new selling agent, and that's what I want to focus on. What would you want me to focus on?
So I don't have an existing database. That's the criteria here, right?
That's the criteria.
Okay, well, the first thing that I would do is build a database. I would dump my phone, I would dump my Facebook, I would dump my LinkedIn into a CRM. I use Follow Up Boss, but there are lots of, and it's expensive, but there are lots of programs out there that are really inexpensive, $5-10 free even, I think. So that's the first thing I would do. And I would come up with some sort of newsletter or email and send them something once a month. And I would have conversations with those people that I engage with. So those are obvious things, right? You start with your sphere of influence, but it's really important to get everybody consolidated and to offer some sort of regular engagement to remind them that you are around and able to be of service. And you do that by promoting news that might be of interest to people who are home buyers, home sellers, actively or in the future. That's number one. Number two, I would make sure that I chunk that message up and put it on social media. Again, to let people know, just create an awareness that you're an expert and you're there to assist them. And I would make, and if that didn't result in any activity, and it will over time, but if it doesn't result in immediate activity, the next thing I would do is probably start calling the people that I have warm relationships with, people maybe that I've lost touch with, people that maybe you think about often but don't communicate with often, and just reach out to them, text, email, phone call, and just say, hey, when you think about them, then send them a note, let them know that you're thinking about them and hope that they're doing well and staying safe, and and not make any kind of proposition, just to try to connect a little bit, so that when you do have communication with them, because it's not, you don't want it only you don't want personal to turn business, so you want to warm it up a little bit with some how you doings. And it doesn't really get, it's not really much more complicated than that. Now, am I allowed to spend money?
Yeah, sure. You can spend a little bit of money.
Okay. And so if I were going to spend a little bit amount of money, I would probably, go to Fiverr or something like that and get somebody to create either a short, a couple of graphics for me, or maybe a short video. And I would really try to create some differentiation between me and everyone else, knowing that in California, 1 in 95 adults is a licensed real estate agent. That doesn't make them all qualified. If you have 500 friends, or your friends have 500 friends, that means 5 of them are real estate agents. If you listen to me, this is probably the number one fact that I repeat over and over and over again, because I just marvel at these numbers. That means you're competing against, your potential clients, these people you think that would naturally choose you if they were going to do a real estate transaction, probably have 5, 6, or more people to choose from, and they're likely to reach out to the person who is more top of mind. And when people are reaching out to their friends, they don't reach out to them unless they're pretty certain that they're going to use them. And my experience has been that I find out late, if they don't call me and ask me about a transaction, I found out later that they did a real estate transaction, not before. And so you think that they're going to call you and at least talk to you, but they'd rather not talk to you. So you've got to get out there and pre-sell them with content and let them know what your value proposition is, and give them a reason to at least communicate with you before they select somebody to help them buy or sell a house. And those are some really basic things that you can do. If it were, if we were allowed to have face-to-face meetings, and obviously I would be talking to them about the monster marketing system to be able to do that. And next year we'll certainly be able to do that again, I think. But I think for, the most part, this is not a complicated business. I think that we overcomplicate it. But what we really need to do is simply toot our own horn a little bit, communicate our value proposition, be of service to our friends in the community, offer valuable pieces of information that make people want to engage with you, at least indirectly through social media or email, and generally be willing to offer your expert advice for free until somebody is ready to do a transaction that you can get paid to do.
David, how can people get involved with everhome.io and have you as their broker and mentor in the future?
Well, you can email me at david@everhome.io. We are actively hiring people who want to list homes over the phone right now. We've got for those people who are wondering how they fit in, we've developed a 5-person team. So we've got 3 what we call openers, who are talking to people who are interested in listing their house. They're signing up doing 10 to 15 listings a month, and then passing them off to a licensed agent who's onboarding their listing and then handling the negotiations. So our agents are doing about 30 transactions a month, supported by a transaction coordinator who's handling the details. So if you're in California and you're interested in handling a volume of transactions, you really love the deal making part, the getting houses on the market, not the listing part, but getting the houses on the market, handling the negotiations, getting them in escrow, and then letting the TC, and just repeating that, where you're closing 1 a day or so. We might be a place that you go, even if you're unlicensed, but you're a killer on the phone, you got fire in your belly, and you love the idea of offering a solution that is not available anywhere else in the world. With our listed with owner program, we are able to employ them to tell people about how our listed with owner program works. They just can't do the part where you actually get the listing. So we can help those. And of course we need transaction coordinators as well. So we're getting ready to undergo a massive surge in hiring. We're starting to do that a little bit at a time right now. So people that are interested in learning more about the opportunities we have in the state of California is David at everhome.io. Of course, you can call me at 805-379-3300.
With all of that said, my final words to all of you listening to this: 2 feet in the past will not allow 1 into the future. Stop regretting past decisions and do something to change your future. Thank you joining both David and myself on this week's broadcast.